All right. What's going on, everybody? Want to say first and foremost a big thank you for watching my last video. I had no idea it would get that many views, and the number of discussions it's generated has been pretty fantastic. So again, thank you so much. From now on, every Monday, I'll try to put together like a short video for the community and make this, kind of a regular thing. Today, though, I'm going to change it up just a little bit and talk about the customer buying process. Now, this is, applicable for sellers, but frankly, it's really for customers who are making fairly large buying decisions over the next few months or even years. Okay, a little bit of backstory here before we get into it. So, I got exposed to long-term strategy and planning while I was a contractor working within the DoD. And at the time, I was helping a few government resources figure out whether it's worth investing in data centers in the Middle East. Now, as you can imagine, building a data center in the desert is a fairly expensive endeavor. And so the DoD has a number of methods in how to actually evaluate investments to see if it's worth doing or not. That's how I kind of first cut my teeth in that world. Now, fast forward a few years, got into the enterprise space, and I was fortunate enough to actually work with some fairly large customers and actually help them build their buying process. This is even before I got into sales, but frankly, I would say is probably the number one thing that's helped me work with customers and essentially navigate their buying process and ultimately leading to closing sales. So let me kind of get to high level what this consists of and how you as a customer can basically leverage it. Okay, so when you're building a buying process, you should always try to figure out, the means or the criteria by which you're going to evaluate an investment. Now, over the number of years that I work with a lot of enterprises, we try a lot of different methods, try a lot of different approaches, and we basically came down to this model, which I'm going to share with you, which is pretty effective whether you're a small company, a medium-sized company, or even a large, enterprise. Now, as we get into this, let me also share that if you're a customer and you built your buying process, please, please, please don't be coy and share it with the people that are trying to sell it to you. I'll come back around why that could be really useful here in just a second. But let's get into the model. Now, the model that I've developed, don't worry about remembering all of this. There's a spreadsheet you can actually download. I'll put the link up above, and you'll be able to actually interact with it and use it based on the walkthrough that I'm going to give you now. Okay, so the spreadsheet that we've developed basically is a buying process that focuses across valuating investments along three categories. Okay, the first one we're going to talk about is the value category. Now, you would think that that's probably all it needs to be, but actually not so much, and I'll talk about why. The value category actually has four different elements to it. First, there's the financial value, and we'll get into things like IRR, NPV, hurdle rate, and all that. That's in the spreadsheet already. There's some elements specifically around what financial value it's going to create you, whether it's increase top line revenue, increase or improve operating income, whatever that is. But that's just like kind of one element to it. Okay. The next piece we're going to talk about is the measurability of the benefit. Now, you'd say, why is that important, and why do we need to include that as part of the buying process or a mechanism by which we evaluate whether an IT investment or any investment for that matter is worth doing? Okay, the reason being is because just because there's a organization or a seller that's saying, hey, we can create you this type of value, value realization is actually the end game. And so if you don't have a means to measure the value that the organization or the seller is trying to position to you, then really you have to ask yourself, is it that valuable? Okay. The next level of category that we put inside the financial value score is accountability of the benefit. Now, again, why is this important? Well, the reason being is because even after you've made the deal, you've implemented the solution, being able to go back to a single person and being able to address or understand what value was created by a solution, an investment, whatever you like, is absolutely paramount and of utmost importance, even along the lines of being able to measure that value. So how is that benefit accounted for within the organization? Okay. The last piece we're going to talk about is committed cost, which is effectively also referred to as sunk cost. So this is something along the lines of the investments you've already made, or the investments you're looking at leveraging that the other parts of the organization might also be able to take advantage of. Okay, so that's the value score. Now let's get down to the strategic score. Okay, now you'd ask yourself also, hey, if the value score is there, why does the strategic score even matter? Okay, well, there's 3 elements to this. Let me walk through each one and why it's important. So the value score talks about the benefits. The strategic score talks about the alignment with the organization. Now, you may actually be executing an initiative that we may not actually have a direct sight or line of sight or direct path towards realizing the value. It might be something that's more strategic in nature. For example, growing to an emerging market, or developing a new product, or breaking in to another sub-vertical or industry vertical. You may not actually know specifically what the value is, but if strategically the organization is making that investment or is moving into that direction, then there might be a high strategic alignment score there. Another part that you want to kind of call out here is the contribution of this investments to either top line revenue or new revenue. Now, you may ask yourself also, why isn't that in the value score? Well, typically you want to take and you actually want to weight certain investments that are going to grow revenue or bring in new revenue a little bit, either differently or with a higher level of urgency or priority. Okay. The last aspect of the strategic score is what we call enterprise applicability. So the reason why this is important is because if a business unit is making this investment, then you want to be able to see if it can be leveraged by other parts of the organization, hence increasing its strategic, or I'd say enterprise applicability score. Okay, so that's within the strategic score category. The next piece we're going to talk about is the feasibility score. So the feasibility score is something that essentially just talks about risks. Okay, so just because you have a good idea, just because you have a clear line of sight into the value it creates, understanding, hey, like what does it actually take to implement this, to make it happen? What are the risks? This is what we're going to talk about in terms of feasibility. Okay, so there's 4 aspects to this. Number 1 is what we just call as composite risk. And this could be a multitude of different things. It could be the readiness of the organization, the vendor, ability to deliver. There's a lot of aspects to this. Check out the spreadsheet. There's more that you can look into specifically how you rate that. The next piece we're going to talk about is business and even IT capacity in terms of the feasibility score. So the reason why this is important is because, you can have a great idea. You have a clear line of path to value. However, if the business simply doesn't have the capacity or isn't ready, then that will decrease its feasibility score. Okay, and it is something to take into account both from a business perspective and an IT perspective. Again, if you're selling technical solutions. Okay, the next piece we're going to cover very quickly is what we refer to as change complexity. So what has to change within the business to actually benefit the organization in terms of implementing the solution? Okay, and there's a lot of different gray area there, but that's one aspect to it. And the last piece is essentially investment timing. So, when we deploy this solution, then what is the organization's ability to actually realize value over a given amount of time? So, for example, if the hurdle rate or the payback period is within 6 months, then you have a relatively low investment timing score, which is great. But not every investment is going to pay off in the same amount of time frames. It might be 1 year, it might be 2 years, it might be a few months. That goes into the investment timing score. Now, just to kind of quickly recap, we talked about 3 categories that you as a customer can use to be able to understand whether it's time or not to make a certain investment. One thing that I'll also kind of point out was really valuable in using this type of framework is twofold. Number one, if you're comparing solutions, this is a great way to put vendors alongside each other to be able to evaluate something as a score and using that as a mechanism to make an investment decision. Additionally, share this, and I said this earlier, with your sellers. Don't be coy about it. If your sales teams or the sellers you interact with understand how you as an organization are going to make an investment decision, you understand that they understand your buying process, it only benefits you, because your sales teams are going to show up very differently if they understand all the categories or the criteria by which you're making that investment. It only makes your life easier. All right, so this has been a quick walkthrough of a investment prioritization spreadsheet that we've developed for you guys. Hope you find it useful. Please let me know if you'd like to see other topics included in a few of these conversations, the videos that we're going to develop. But aside from that, thank you so much for your time, guys. Have a great week.